Hi, this is Jen Iacopucci. I'm a member of the Circuit Breaker team, and this training module is going to demonstrate a newer feature for FY26, which is our dashboard reports in your claim. As you can see, I'm on the main page for CHAMP, and where you see the heading Circuit Breaker, and your headings across here may look different depending on your access into CHAMP. But in Circuit Breaker, there's now a drop down, and there's the section to go to your claims, which we have other training modules on. And now there's a new section that brings you to District Dashboard. This dashboard will show you information related to claims that have been entered. A couple things I want to point out right off the bat here is your dashboard will show you all the districts that your login has access to. So in this case, I only have access to Pawnee. That's the only claim, the claim data I'm going to see. If I had access to Pawnee and CBville, all that claim data would be here. This is just one district that I'm showing you right now. So that's something you need to be aware of. There's probably a little bit more than a handful of you that have access to more than one district. When you open this, it's not going to be sorted by district. Instead, it's sorted by fiscal year. And you can see that filter right at the top here where I'm circling above circuit breaker claims. It's going to automatically filter to see FY26. The other data that's loaded in here on this dashboard is fiscal year 25. You do have claim data available to view in your actual claim going back to fiscal year 22, but you're not able to see that in the dashboard because that was data that was loaded, not entered. So it doesn't come to the dashboard because of that. But in other trainings, as I mentioned, if you want to see specific information on claims, placements, or anything like that, going back those years, you're able to do that by going into the claim. The other thing, I'm going to keep it on oh, you could also do an all and you'd be able to compare FY25 and FY26 if you wanted to. I'm going to keep it in FY26 just to go through all the different reports. The other thing that you want to do when you open up this dashboard is refresh because the information that is reflected on this report is constantly changing as you're entering data. It could also change after you've submitted your claim and we're reviewing it because we might make changes during review. So if you go to look at this dashboard, please get in the habit of pressing refresh up here on the top right. Now, the top part will show you the claims that are available to you. Then further down, and you do have to scroll over to the right here, you should see this scroll going up and down. It's going to bring you to the first set of reports. And there's 6 reports here now. We may add more reports as districts request things, and we think it would be best for all districts to see, but these are basically what we put together based on requests that we've gotten after the first year being in CHAMP. Couple things I want to point out to you, just in terms of how this dashboard looks for each report. The top is basically the title, and there's a brief description of what it shows you in the report. But I would recommend viewing the report, which is further down in this dashboard block, just so you can see what exactly the information it's giving you, because the way we understand it could be different than the way you understand it at your district, and that's fine. And I'll open this in a minute just to show you. The other thing is if you hover, you'll see what claim it's looking at, and then you have it by student here. And if you wanted to just see the student information, this particular student, Sadan Rafaela, you could just click this student, and instead of seeing all your students, it would show you just Sadan's. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm sorry if I'm not. And then you just go back and you're back to the dashboard. The other thing that I want to bring to your attention is if you had more students listed here, I think I have just the number of students that fill this window, but if you had more students that do not fill this window, there would be the option to scroll through and you'd be able to scroll through all your students that are here. So the first report, now I'm going to go through the reports and I'm going to show you what each of these reports is telling you in a brief description. The first one, student summary report. If we open this up, these are all the students that have been claimed on Pawnee, and it lets you know if the student has any issues. You can see there's a few issues here for Pawnee. If there was special indicator, the status, if it's in or out, if it's above threshold. Most of this information you can also find on the Sum All worksheet. This is a condensed version of this. In this summary, more is letting you know what the adjusted cost is for instructional and tuition and the adjusted cost is for expenses. The reason why adjusted cost is important is because the adjusted cost should reflect the amount you paid for out-of-district tuition and the amount you paid for out-of-district transportation. So this could be an easy check for you once you enter. Do my bills, what I have documented for bills, match what I claimed? So that's why this one's important. The other thing that it's giving you is any comments that you may have entered on a student level. That's when you're entering your claim and you have a student, you have the option to enter a comment. That is also on this report. The second report goes into a little bit more detail. This is the detailed student report. This gives you the total, the adjusted, and the net cost by student. And I'm going to open this one up. This is, again, all the students. And this gives you basically the same thing we just looked at on the other one with the adjusted cost. But now it's also adding other options in here. This is also available on the Sum All sheet, but you'll see you have the total cumulative credit applied if you had a cumulative credit that had to be applied, total tuition, then your cost share, which then is now your adjusted expense, which is what you're paying. Then you have your net instructional, which is the adjusted cost after threshold is applied. The net is what your reimbursement is based on. So your net instructional tuition expense is important if you want to calculate what you could be receiving for reimbursement. Then we have the same thing for transportation. And again, you'd have adjusted transportation costs here. We don't with Pawnee because Pawnee is in relief stage, but you'd be able to go here and say, do these match what I've paid for transportation, what I've calculated I paid? And then you'd have your net transportation, which would take off threshold. This would give you an idea of what your reimbursement would be based on. You also have a list here of what students are being submitted for relief and what students are being submitted for final, based on what stage you're in. And again, the comments on student level. One thing that I want to point out to you is, and I should have done this on earlier, so I'm sorry I'm doing this on the second one. If you wanted to export this, you'd be able to do next to the Save As button on the top right, there's a caret, and you have the option here to export. And it would export this to Excel. You have a formatted report, which would basically look like what we're looking at on this report, or you have a detailed report, which would calculate would show the claim name over and over, and it might show some other details. I recommend exporting both of these versions and see which one works for you. I prefer one in the office and someone else prefers the other. I think it's just a preference, but you'd be able to export this in Excel and then you'd be able to work with it the way you want. But remember, when you export it, the data could change as information is changing in the claim system. So if you export it, date it or have some tracking mechanism that you know what the export is that you're looking at, because if somebody goes in and adds something or takes it away or we review it and change something, it may not match the file that you've saved in an export. So I want to bring home that this data could be changing constantly that on these dashboards. Well, not constantly, there'd be a freeze at some point, but while you're working until we issue payments, this data could be changing. Going to the next one, and you'll see I still have to scroll down here. This is the placement cost report. And this will show you all the students you claimed and each of their placements claimed. This is basically, if you're from our old system, we used to have the sums acid. We have the sums acid built into the system too. It's a sum of the placements for each student once you open the student. But on this report, it's showing you the sum of each placement for all of the students in one place. So this could be a good double check for you to go through and say, okay, I know Dave Dixon had a school year program and a summer year program. Did I claim both of them? Yes, I did. They're here. So, and this is exactly what I paid, 55,000 for the school year and well, I paid 3,500 for the summer, but I applied cumulative credit, so it's calculating zero. This is a good way to go through and just do another double check of did I get it? I mean, I guess you could look at adjusted cost. If you match, you match. You don't need to go to this placement. But if you didn't match on adjusted cost, you might want to go to this placement report and say, well, where did I go wrong with this? Might be instead of going into all the placements, you could go here and do a quick look. And then if you know, for example, the 55,000 isn't correct, you could go right into this placement from here by hovering over the placement number and make the change to the placement if you had to. Now, moving on to the next three. The top three, you will see data in as you start entering placements, no matter what. The bottom three will depend on the type of placements you enter. So you may have a situation where you have, like where you see transportation service level over to the right, this note that says we can't draw this chart because there is no data. You may have an instance where you have no data. This is giving me this message because I don't have any transportation data entered. So there is nothing to show me on this dashboard. These other two reports that are here, cost share report and in-district supplemental service level report, would depend on if you're claiming cost shares and if you're claiming in-district and supplemental service level. Don't be alarmed if you see this message. It just means you do not have any data relevant to these three reports. I'm going to go back to the cost share report. What this is telling you is if you've claimed a cost share with any entity, which includes another LEA, a DCF cost share, or an other situation, and it tells you the amount that you claimed for that cost share. And you'll see we have Dave Dixon in here and Thomas Riddle. Let's view the report so we can see both of these. If I wanted to just look at one, I could have clicked the student. And you'll see we have their placements here, the start and end dates, the total cost share that we're claiming, and then it tells you what kind of cost share. The first one for Dave Dixon's a second LEA. Thomas Riddle is an other cost share. If it is a second LEA, it tells you who it is, and if there's any comments related that you've entered, and then it gives you the comments that we enter it once we go through the review. This is a good check too for you to make sure you've claimed cost shares that you're aware of at the end. Like you may know Thomas Riddle had a parents are paying 10,000. You want to do a quick check. Did I claim that correctly? You could look right here and see Thomas Riddle is here and here's the 10,000. The next report shows you in-district and supplemental services that have been claimed by student. And it's the detail of what those services are. I'm just going to select one student because I don't want it to get too confusing, and then I'll go back and select all. But I'm going to first select Harry Potter, who was our example for our in-district claim. And you'll see here, Harry Potter, there's two what we call parent placements. This is the roll-up placement of all the service. This is like basically your claim details for an in-district placement. That's this number here where it says parent placement. Then when we scroll over, we see other placement numbers. These are the placement numbers for all the services that have been claimed. Each service has its own placement. And you can do a quick look here to see, okay, Harry Potter, the only thing that's it is confusing for me, and it may be for you until we all get in the system, is it doesn't give you the start and end date. To see that, you'd have to click this parent placement number, and I'm going to click that. And you'll see here, this is the placement range from September to June. So if I wanted to verify the services claim September through June for this parent placement here, 0239798, I'd be able to go through this and say, okay, these are the services I know that I want claimed. This is what's in his IEP. And you see it's listed here by A, B, and C grid, the group type, and the hours that were claimed. If I wanted to change any of these, if the LPN was I have 2 hours a day and it's actually 3 hours, I'd click the placement number related to the service to make that change. And I could open this up, and that brings me, if you look at the top of the placement, right to the licensed practical nurse placement. And if I wanted to change this from 2 hours to 3, I could just go right in here with the pencil and do an edit and then a save. It's taking some time, sorry about that. And then when I go back, let's see, I don't know if I need to refresh. We'll take a look here. Yep, it changed it to the 3 hours. So just when you're looking at this in-district and supplemental placement report, you want to make note that you have 2 different placement numbers here. The first one is the parent placement, which is the roll-up of the in-district services. And I'm going to open it just to have it make more sense. This is the claim details of the in-district services claimed. And we go into more detail on this in the in-district demo, but this is the roll-up of the services and what the cost is. Okay, that's the first placement that you see in this report. The second placement numbers that you see are the placement numbers related to all of the services that are claimed. And it's important to make the distinction if you want to change any of the services that are already claimed here, because you want to make sure you're pressing on the correct placement number. If you did press on this parent placement instead, you'd be able to get to the services easily by going to this related button. And if you watched our editing, deleting, and adding in district services recording, it's basically the same thing as that. You could change any service here by going to this edit button. But if you wanted to work right from the report and not have to do all that drilling, you could just go to the second placement number that's listed next to each of the services. Going back to the report, I only opened up Harry. I want to open up all the students just so you know how to get here. View report. And now these are all the students that were claimed with in-district or supplemental placements on Pawnee. And again, if I wanted to export this, I'd go to this caret next to the Save As, press Export, and then decide on the type of report I want, and then export, and it would export it right to Excel for you. And then you'd be able to manipulate it, filter it, add it, do whatever you want. One more report here. Transportation, we know we don't have anything because we haven't entered any transportation claims. And then further down, you'll see collaborative credit applied by student. This would give you an indication of who you have applied cumulative credit to. So in this case, we only have one student and it was applied to accept. And I know that because I'm kind of hovering over this ACC. I can click on Dave. I'm just going to click on him instead of all because he's the only one. And this shows me Dave's placements, the cost, and what cumulative credit was applied to which placement. So this is a good double check as well if you have cumulative credits that you need to be tracking and how you want to apply them. So that's there as well. So these are the first few reports that we've put together in the dashboard. Hopefully you find them helpful. And if you have any trouble going through these or you're not sure what you're looking at, please reach out to us at any time and we're happy to review any of this with you. Thank you. I hope you found this helpful and good luck with your claiming.